I've had food poisoning a couple of times, so that makes life difficult. I'll spare you the details. I know India has diverse culture. There's a rule of thumb where every 100 kilometers you go, there's a different culture, a different language, a different, experience. So I'm cruising around some of the side streets in India. I'm here in Delhi, my local neighborhood. They're beautiful. Got me thinking, what are some of the things I'm missing about Australia? Living in India and living in Australia are almost polar opposite experiences, to be honest with you. I mean, look at this. I don't know if you can see the cows back there chilling. Even the roads, everything's completely different. We've got little street dogs coming up on my left here. Everything's very different, little dogs. Beautiful. So there are some beautiful things about being here. But it got me thinking, what are some of the things I miss the most about living in Australia? What are some of the beautiful things about Australia that are hard to replace and especially can't be found in India? I think firstly is nature. And of course, before I get into this, India has some beautiful nature. Up in the mountains is amazing. Kerala, the backwaters, incredible. But in the cities, in the major cities, it's just like mostly like roads and buildings and rubbish and pollution. Honestly, that's most of it, at least most of my experience in Delhi. In Melbourne, for example, there's nature everywhere. The botanical gardens in Melbourne, one of my favorite places on earth. And so it's like, even if you're in inner city areas, inner suburbs, there's nature to be found, there's beautiful greenery, and you can have that experience. You can go for beautiful walks, whereas the climate in India is almost just too hot all the time to go on walks. Hello. It's always too hot here. To be honest, it's actually pretty green here where I'm walking. But for the most part, it's just roads in the city. So it can be difficult to go for a nice, pleasant walk. And even right now, it's pretty nice conditions. I mean, look, blue sky, which honestly is pretty rare in Delhi. But it's hot. It's like 30 degrees. Sunny's like beaming. Not going to be long before I get back inside. So I think that nature, that beautiful cleanliness, I miss that a lot. It impacts you. There's kind of just rubbish everywhere. Everywhere you walk, there's rubbish. And so that gets to you after a bit of time. Sometimes you just want to be in clean nature. And that's something I absolutely miss about Australia. Like I said, the botanical gardens, for example, immaculate, beautiful. Even the local parks, they're absolutely gorgeous. Whereas the local parks here don't even compare. Really, they don't even compare. So that's the first thing. I miss nature and that cleanliness. I miss food, actually. I miss the food a lot. I miss the food because Indian food is obviously fantastic here. I mean, it goes without saying. But then the cuisines from pretty much every other country, not that great in India, if I'm honest with you. You can find exceptions to that rule, of course, but in Australia, you can get delicious food from pretty much every cuisine, anywhere, almost anywhere. You're getting really high quality food, really good culinary chefs, and you're having an amazing culinary experience all over the place. And you got a variety of different restaurants and some of the best food in the world. Melbourne especially, but Sydney, pretty much all the cities in Australia, fantastic for a food experience. So I absolutely miss that. I enjoy the Indian food here, but if I'm honest with you, I don't eat Indian food that much. I'm mostly eating lean meats. Trying to keep that protein high. Indian diet I find is quite low on protein, and so I try to keep that protein high. But the food I miss the food in Australia a lot. I miss that variety. I miss the high quality foods. I've had food poisoning a couple of times, so that makes life difficult. I'm not going to go into details there. I'll spare you the details. But I miss that for sure. The other thing I miss actually a lot, and I think after a period of time in India, it starts to hit you, especially if you lived in a place like Australia, is diversity. And what I mean by that is diversity of culture. And again, before I get into this, I know India has diverse culture. There's a rule of thumb where every 100 kilometers you go, there's a different culture, a different language, a different, experience. But what I mean is global culture, like for me as an outsider, Indian culture is quite similar across the country. Of course, there's differences between the areas of India. But for me as an outsider, it all looks sort of similar and feels sort of similar. Whereas Australia has cultural impact and cultural diversity from all across the world. You have people from every single corner of the planet in Australia. You have Japanese people, you have American people, you have Canadian, you have South Americans, you have everything all in one place. You don't get that here. Here you walk around and it's just 99.999% Indian people, it's an intense experience, but I definitely miss that culture, the different cultural events, cultural celebrations from people all across the world. Again, ties into the cuisines and the food we're talking about. And so I absolutely miss that. When I meet expats here or people from different parts of the world that are in India, I get excited. I'm like, hey, lovely to meet you. What are you doing here? And you kind of have a bit of a bond. And that is actually a beautiful thing about being an expat in India as well. But it's absolutely something I miss about Australia. So those are three beautiful things. And honestly, three reasons why Australia is such a beautiful country, because You do have beautiful nature, clean experience. Even in the cities, it's gorgeous. You have world-class food. World-class food. It's absolutely delicious food. Some of the best quality food you'll get in the world. And diversity. You've got amazing diversity. It's a welcoming country. Over 40% of Australian people have at least one parent born outside of Australia or from international descent, which is absolutely unbelievable. So that just shows and proves the diversity of the country, the welcomingness of the country. And I absolutely miss that diversity, you know, walking around and seeing shops and people from different areas of the world. It's a beautiful feeling to feel like you're kind of connected to the whole world, even though you're just in one place. It's a beautiful thing. So those are things I really miss about Australia. Definitely doesn't take away from my Indian experience at all. This is absolutely an experience, but I'm excited to be back in Australia when I visit my family and friends and reconnect with those parts of Australia that I absolutely miss. So that's a little bit of a reflection after 6 months living in India. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure you click that subscribe button. It would help me a hell of a lot. And I'll see you in the next one.